being lynched at the moment and things of that kind. So there may be some benefits. So the moral component would probably be a help. But I think also, people say, well, what is morality to you or to anyone else? And to my mind, it's an aesthetic thing. It's an aesthetic. I think I mentioned it last time. I'll just emphasize it again, because that goes with what this book is. This book is an aesthetic object. Aesthetic means having to do with art or beauty, in this case literature. It's an aesthetic thing. I mean, there are many, as I told you, I think earlier, there are many different ways to live. But since we only get one chance, it looks like, I'm not a Hindu in the sense I believe that we're going to come back 100 million times. Since we only get one chance, even if we do come back, I'm not going to be aware of myself, that's for sure. I don't know anyone else, whoever it was. But we only get one chance. I'd like to do it the best way I can. And that's an aesthetic decision. I mean, I could choose to do it the worst way possible. I could kick the heck out of other people, I could kill other people, I could steal, I could do all kinds of things, but it doesn't please me. It doesn't recommend itself to me. I choose not to do those things. It's a choice. But it's not necessarily a moral, it's an aesthetic choice. To my mind, it's a matter of being higher or lower. Living in a higher manner, and why not live the highest way you can? Why treat your life as a piece of junk, as something low? Why live in a low manner if you don't really have to? If you have to, forced to, okay, but if you have freedom of choice, why not live the highest way you possibly can? That's an aesthetic decision to me. It's because I choose to live like that. I don't know if you ever saw that movie Lawrence of Arabia, or if I mentioned it to you previously. I mentioned it in one class. Lawrence is the one who sort of lived like a Bedouin among the Arabs and sort of helped the Arabs gain independence from the Turks. At one point he's speaking to a Bedouin chieftain, something like Abraham, and he's trying to convince him to come on this raid on Aqaba, the seaport. I don't know if you've seen the movie. I don't even know how accurate the movie is. I doubt it's very accurate. It's again, an aesthetic presentation. And he tries to give him English money and so on and so forth. And the chieftain finally said to him, I'm going to go because it pleases me. Not because of anything that you're offering me, not because of the money, not because of anything. Auda is his name. Auda is pleased to him. It pleases me. It's an aesthetic choice. It pleases one, and it pleases one to live a certain way. So I think that's what the Hebrews were building into this first chapter of Genesis. Something that was pleasing. It was good. And on the last day, it was very good. Good sermon. I didn't even know I was going to give it. There you are, a sermon. So yeah, I am a big supporter of the Old Testament as literature. Now, you guys saw that on 2:4, such were the origins of heaven and earth when they were created. We moved into another area. That was the end of the first material that we saw. And then we moved into this second, more personal, up close. You can think it's the same writer if you choose, but it looks like a fairly different textual tradition. And that's what we're talking about, textual traditions. So this second account of so-called creation, even though you can say, well, we already created everything. Well, if we've already created everything, why is there no wild plants, bushes, or anything else on the earth? And so on. So, you know, there is a problem here right off. It's not necessarily a contradiction. That's again, the problem with people who take the Old Testament too seriously. The ones who lay on the Old Testament more than it can bear. These are not contradictions. These are just different writers whose work has been put together in a final whole. It's like what we call, you know, spliced together like that. Again, as I told you, it's like taking the four Gospels and putting them together, even though certainly John and the other three contradict each other or don't agree on many points. Some points they do, but very little that they really agree on. most believers don't see the differences and just put them together anyway in a kind of spinach and assume it's all true, when in fact probably very little bit has anything to do with truth, but once again, aesthetics, beauty or something like that, or art, but very little to do with history. And, you know, people don't realize that ancient writers wrote. People think that the ancients were, you know, idiots. They were not idiots. They were extremely sophisticated people, and they wrote. And a lot of them wrote very creatively. And then the other people who saw their writing collected it at some point and were impressed by it. And then they didn't want to lose any. So they spliced it all together in a narrative whole. The people who spliced it together weren't as creative as the people who wrote these things. They were more like an editorial board in a newspaper or in a publishing company, Slate magazine or something like that. And I don't think that, and they always made the best choices, but one thing with the Old Testament, I don't think they threw anything away. So they just kept everything, even if it contradicted something. So this was another account, very good account, totally different, very personal, up close, sort of like a close-up shot, a zooming in shot. And this, even the word for created, God created, is different. Here, God doesn't create in the Hebrew, like the God created the heavens and the earth and so on and so forth. Here, God molds man, as I told you, like a bit of clay. And he doesn't create men and women in multitudes. He creates one man, and then we have this wonderful story about how the woman appeared. The story of, the reason I mentioned the Old Testament parallels is that the story of Gilgamesh in here has a similar situation to the Garden of Eden here. And that's an earlier book than when this was finally collected. So people think that the Bible writers were influenced and did borrow materials from other cultures around them. But they fashioned them in their own way. I think in the Gilgamesh, the main thing is that he's seeking eternity, which most people are. And he's, therefore, the tree of life is the main thing. Eternal life, if you want to call it that, is the main thing. So in that story, Gilgamesh is seeking eternal life. And, pardon me, he's looking for a garden wherein this exists. And the other tree, the second tree, is more Old Testament Hebraic. Or if you like the first story, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That isn't in the ancient text, it's only in the Old Testament.